Hello again and welcome back to the Drought Proof Garden. I'm Jason. Today's video is just going to be one of my monthly walkthrough tours of what I have going on in the garden. I do these about every month through the spring and summer garden season, occasionally in the winter, but not so much because often there's just not that much going on. I realize that from an audience perspective, these maybe aren't the most interesting videos in the world. Totally understand that. A lot of this is for my own reference, to remind me of things that were going on in the past, prevent myself from repeating some mistakes, a way to assess what's working and what isn't. And if, any outside audience members happen to get something out of it as well, that's awesome. I hope that if nothing else, a few people will like the pretty footage of plants. So here we go. All right, now that I have thrown our chickens a handful of dried soldier worms so they'll stop squawking for 5 minutes, I'll start with what I have going on tomato-wise. I have things kind of spread out throughout the garden in different beds, but most of what I have going are these Rio Grande sauce tomatoes. These are taking up a bulk of my bed space this year, actually. I fell in love with these last year. They were my only sauce tomato variety that was completely immune to all blossom end rot. Maybe not completely. I think I found a total of 5 last year that had some blossom end rot, but tremendously resistant. I can't recommend these enough for other gardeners who live in places with long, hot, dry summers with somewhat cool nights. This variety is particularly adapted to hot days and cool nights, which is really just perfect here in the Sacramento Valley. So these are 8. I have almost 50 of these going in different beds. And like all of my tomatoes, I wound up putting these out in the garden way too early. This year, for whatever reason, my starts inside under the grow lights grew a lot faster than usual. I don't like to put out my tomatoes until about April 15th. But this year I had to put them out about a month earlier. So they did experience some less than ideal conditions, some, several day stretches of chilly, wet temperatures still. But they have put on a lot of size since about March 20th when I put them out. And they're flowering, and some of them are setting fruit, like this guy here. So that's an encouraging sign that maybe I didn't ruin them completely. There are some tomato issues that I'm seeing and identifying hopefully early enough. I'll get to those in a moment. Okay, these 2 beds here with the tomatoes tied up to the long stakes are my only indeterminates this year, my slicing tomatoes. In this bed I have a new to us variety called Virginia Sweet, based on my research. It's said to be a very heat-tolerant tomato, and I always like to try at least one new alleged heat-tolerant tomato variety every year. Again, we have some good blossom activity going on. These have put on quite a bit of size since I put them out here. So they're a yellow-colored slicing tomato, and I'm really excited. So hopefully these, bear fruit and don't die in the interim. My Cherokee purples, my tried and true, they seem to do really well here in a hot, dry climate. I have heard reports from people in hot, humid climates who, Cherokee purples have been a complete flop for them. And again, have some fruit starting up early. I've been helping out pollination with the electric toothbrush trick here lately to hopefully just increase yields just a little bit. And more Rio Grande sauce tomatoes. Same here and here and all down this row here. That bed there and this bed here. We like to make a lot of homemade various tomato sauces, marinaras, etc., along with salsa. And once you eat enough of that, going back to store-bought stuff, it's just kind of awful. It's really hard to go from really nice homemade sauces and salsas to the mass-produced jarred stuff. Not that I'm usually a snob about such things, but again, more fruit set going on. And I've been checking them to see any signs of BER. I don't know that it would show up that early, but really so far so good. Another one right. Apologize the shaky camera work. I did not go to school for cinematography. I went for English, which is only slightly less useful. And my only bed of cherry tomatoes is right here. On one half, I have the Botanical Interests Patio Select yellow cherry tomatoes that I've had a lot of luck with. The other is a variety by Burpees, the Baxter's Bush Champion. One of these is setting fruit. I honestly can't remember which variety is which here. I figured that when the fruit starts to ripen, I'll know which is which, and if they don't make it that far, that's irrelevant anyway. But we really cut down the number of cherry tomatoes we planted this year. In most years, we would plant indeterminate cherry tomatoes, sun golds, black cherries, and we always end up with way more than we can eat and even way more than we can give away. So I'm trying a more manageable number of cherry tomato plants. From a distance, my tomatoes look really healthy. They're putting on size, setting fruit, and that's all a good sign. But over the last week or so, I started noticing consistent and widespread damage to the undersides of a lot of leaves. I'm not sure if my camera is really doing this justice, but what we're seeing here are groove-like patterns, brown groove-like patterns on the bottoms of the leaves. So at first I was worried that there might be some kind of fungal issue affecting the plants because I did put them out too early and they did endure a lot of cool and damp conditions. So I hit them with a copper antifungal as a precaution, but I'm thinking now that this might be pest damage. I'm noticing some eggs on the bottoms of these leaves. That's definitely not going to be picked up on camera. And this morning, I came out early with my coffee, and I noticed that there was a good number of whiteflies actually on one of the lower leaves. So I'm thinking that what I'm starting to see is damage from whitefly nymphs. And if that's the case, I really need to nip this in the bud because whiteflies can absolutely destroy plants once their numbers get great enough, and they can actually spread a lot of bacterial and viral illnesses to various kinds of plants. Nothing is really safe, but especially tomatoes, and as we'll see in a moment, squashes. Right, here's my freshly planted, or not freshly planted, but about 2-week-old winter squash plants. More than 2 weeks. I started these indoors about a month ago to give them a little bit of size, to give them a jump on the heat. And everything was fine, going well for a couple of weeks. And then recently I noticed, especially on these, and again, I'm not sure that the camera that I'm stuck using right now is going to do it justice, but this top leaf here, and I noticed this happening just over the last couple of days, these leaves are turning a silverish white. And that is a telltale sign of silverleaf, which is caused by, again, the silverleaf whitefly. The nymphs, and that's an immature phase of the bug, their saliva is actually toxic to plants. And so the toxin that they're injecting is what's resulting in this silvering of the squash leaves. So I need to come up with a plan to nip this in the bud because, again, last fall I planted a late crop of butternut squash and it was really hit hard by the whiteflies. So I'm looking into control methods and coming up with a plan. And I'll probably end up doing a whole video on how I deal with that. But the issue here with the squash, honestly, that's an irritation, not a devastation. If any of these plants are killed by what the whiteflies do to them, I have plenty of time to restart. Winter squash does grow fast. I'll also have to be more liberal with the shade cloth so that they don't suffer the ill effects of high heat, which I'm expecting to kick in here sometime within the next month. All right, pest issues out of the way. The varieties that I am growing this year are these two here are a variety called Black Futsu. The one there on the right is actually really showing some signs of whitefly damage with the yellowing and curling leaf. This one looks a lot healthier. This is a machada, which is, a butternut type of squash. These three here are an accidental hybrid that popped up last summer that I really liked. I'm pretty sure it's a cross between a golden nugget bush variety squash and a sweetmeat delicatata squash. I really like. They look like little mini pumpkins. I loved how they turned out, so I'm growing more this year. Here's a zoomed out view of the makeshift trellis that I built. I just made makeshift posts out of 2x3s, pounded them into the ground and secured them with some C-clamps and stretched a piece of nylon garden netting over. I wanted something that would come down easy when the season's over. Vertical structures actually provide a nice oasis shady effect in the summer, but they can feel a little claustrophobic in the wintertime when things are a little darker and colder. And right in front of those, I have my sweet potatoes. Planted those out a couple of weeks ago as well, and they seem to be doing fine. This bed here is just the rooted slips. So, you take them off of the sprouted sweet potato, root them in water, plant them. But these are the whole sweet potatoes themselves that I planted, and I'm running a little comparison to see which bed ends up yielding the most sweet potatoes at the end of the season. In this bed here, in the front, I have dill. Use a lot of dill during the year because we make a lot of pickles. And my Armenian cucumbers are starting to come up. Armenian cucumbers are one of the few things that I don't have any problem direct sowing, just because they are so heat loving. If you get a late start, it's fine. I lost a few in this section to slugs before I had a chance to put down the slug bait, so I just reseeded. I mostly hate direct sow. Again, that could probably be an entire video rant in and of itself, but this is one of the few exceptions. And moving on to this bed, my asparagus beans are popping up right here. And again, I put the slug bait down to deter depredation there. In front of these, I have, this is a hybrid variety that I was curious about of hot pepper. They look like bell peppers, but they're not. These are what's called real deal. And the way the advertisements had them is they're the flavor of a habanero, but the hotness level, the spice level of a Tabasco. So I was curious to try these, see if they actually ripen up there for me. These three square beds here, primarily peppers on the end, but this one is eggplant. Again, I'm not hopeful. I really screwed up the timing on a lot of things this year, and these started too early, went out too early. Sunflowers, these are putting on some size nicely, and I snuck in sunflowers pretty much wherever I had space this year, just because I really like the way they look. I enjoy growing them, and they attract a lot of pollinators. So there we go. Oh, we've got a soldier fly, an adult soldier fly on this leaf here. That is something you want to see. They are great. Their larvae are great composters. And peppers, mostly bell peppers. There might be an Anaheim chili or two stuck in here. I really don't like to talk about peppers on my channel that much because I am just so bad at growing them. I've run into a lot of problems just from the get-go, starting them under grow lights that have a lot of edema problems. Again, timing, always end up putting them out too early, so they kind of stunt. So my pepper game needs a lot of improvement. In this brick bed here, a mix of mostly cayenne peppers, which is one of the few hot peppers that actually turn out hot for us, and some serranos, a dwarf lemon that's in rough shape that I'm hoping makes a comeback. I'm not sure what tore into those leaves. I didn't know anything ate citrus leaves, but over the winter something really chewed down on it. So I'm hoping that it makes a comeback, but I'm not sure it will. And of course, extra sunflowers. All right, and here is what passes for my patio garden. Habaneros, more cayennes. One is actually ripening. I'd say that cayennes is actually one of the few pepper varieties I have real success with for whatever reason. And these are just freshly seeded uh, pots of herbs. I've got basil here with a sunflower coming up the middle. I think this was majorum, as it pronounced, and some savory, and again with a sunflower up the middle, and parsley and sunflower. So hoping to have kind of a nice shady oasis effect on the patio this year with everything growing. Along the fence line here, which is the shadiest, um, a blend of hot weather, or Burpees calls it their heat wave lettuce blend. So I'm going to get at least a little bit of a harvest out of lettuce before the murder heat comes along and makes it all bolt and die. Here is a row of Boston pickling cukes. Bush variety cucumber here and here. Zucchini and zucchini. And along these two end trellises on the tomato beds, have yet another line of asparagus beans, which again, these are a really great hot weather alternative to string beans and green beans, which are typically really quickly killed off by heat. If you get sustained temperatures in the 90s or better, your regular green beans are going to die off, but these are absolute heat lovers. The flavor of the bean is a little different, but I actually kind of like it better. I find them a little richer, a little more flavorful than standard green beans. All right, and here I finally got around to doing something with this front yard space. I've been wanting to put some kind of a garden here for a while, and finally wound up putting in a very low, almost no cost in-ground bed by trying to till some compost and organic matter into the clay soil here. So I'm hoping that I can get something to take. Also move these two half-barrel planters out front with some hot pepper. And I had one extra black futsu squash that I just couldn't fit in my backyard bed. So I stuck it here, and hopefully it'll take. What I've decided to plant here this year is just some bush variety butternut squash, and I think I have one popping up already. Yep, right here. The others shouldn't be too far behind. Alternating squash and sunflower. Again, I really like sunflowers. I don't have high hopes for this bed. Again, there's a lot of clay in the soil. Also, I'm not really going to be able to practically set shade cloth up out here. So I have very low expectations for this particular garden bed. But it's a start. And over time with amending, I'm sure I can get it going over the next couple of seasons here. All right, that's really all I have for today. Just a starting point walkthrough tour of what I have going on. And once again, before I sign off, hope it all doesn't die before next time.